Good evening. Let's start with our motivation. And really consider, what does it mean to be under the control of afflictions and karma? Get a sense of how your life lacks freedom to really be able to engage in things and engage with people in a very open way because of the interference of afflictions. Just contemplate for a minute how attachment makes your mind very narrow, how anger makes your mind very narrow, how the afflictions just draw you into a tight kind of knot. And then, being under the influence of afflictions, we then create karma. And the karma, that's complete karma with all the factors present, then it has the potential to bring a rebirth. And so we create another cause to be reborn in cyclic existence. And so every lifetime, we're creating many, many causes for many, many rebirths. And meanwhile, by following attachment and anger and the other afflictions, we deepen the imprint they have in our mind. We deepen our familiarity with them. So get some sense of, how you want to be free, but you aren't free. And develop that intention to be free. And think of what that might feel like to go through your life without the afflictions, always setting perimeters around how you can see and engage and think about things. Imagine what it might be like to have a really open mind that is free of the afflictions. And then from that, develop the aspiration to free yourself from cyclic existence. And then applying that same thing to other living beings. Wish them to be free of cyclic existence. And then generate the bodhicitta so that you can help them to be free. The afflictions are so sneaky that when they come up in our mind, we don't even see them as being disadvantageous. When attachment's there, we never think, oh, there might be another way to relate to this situation besides I need, I want, I have to have, gimme, 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 I need, I want, I have to have, gimme, gimme, gimme. We never think that, maybe there's another way to be in that situation without this incredible craving, tormenting us. And similarly, when we're angry, when we're hurt or angry or whatever, we never think, oh, maybe there's another way to relate to the situation. We just believe in the afflictions so strongly. And yeah, if I'm angry, well, any sane person should and would be angry right now. There is no other way, So we're so convinced in what the afflictions tell us that we don't even realize how they make us so narrow and limit our ability, to engage in things with an open heart, and with a clear mind, because when we really look at it, we can see how much the afflictions get in the way. Yeah, but you have to spend some time looking at it. Yeah, and just seeing sometimes, like, I know for me, like, I'll see a situation and I'll think, oh, gee, that person needs help. I could help, and like, I want to help. And then immediately an affliction comes and then says, but it's so inconvenient, and you might get hurt, or you might get dirty, or they might take advantage of you, or this or that or the other thing. And then, we just believe that. And then, stop ourselves from helping. And so we stop that connection that we could have had with somebody else. Yeah? Or similarly, we go into a new situation and the mind, we go in and we say, okay, I want to really be open and really see people for what they are. And then instantly the mind zooms in on one person that's there. Or maybe we don't zoom in on one person there, we're hooked on one person who isn't there. And then the mind's constantly thinking about that one person. And so we withdraw from all the other people we're with, because the mind is too, hooked on, I want attention from one person, not all the rest of you, one person, that person, And then I got to plan how I can be with them and get their attention and this and that and the other thing. So do you see what I mean about the mind getting very small and narrow, and how we don't even realize it? We just think that this is completely the way things are. That, like, yeah, everybody has special people that they always want to be with, and everybody has people they can't stand, and everybody wants to compete with everybody else and be better and get jealous of people who are better than them. I mean, the whole world is like this, so that's normal, isn't it? And to think of trying to not, to oppose those kind of mental afflictions, it's like, well, people are going to think I'm really weird. Yeah, because everybody else gets angry at this, or everybody else gets jealous at this, and here I am, I'm not, so what's wrong with me? Even though the anger or the jealousy or the craving or whatever it is incredibly painful inside of ourselves. Yeah? Yeah, Geshe Nawandarge used to say that we're, in India, still in India now, they have these donkeys. The donkeys really break my heart, because they, up in Dharamshala, they have the pouches over their back, and they put stones and slate in it and everything. So here are the donkeys. I mean, they're so kind of dull and dumb and obscured and with this heavy burden. And they have a ring through their nose, And so the guys who are carrying the stones or the slate, they just tie a rope on the ring in the donkey's nose, and pull the donkey, and the donkey goes where the guy tells them to go. Either that or the guy whips them from the back. And so Geshe Nawandage would say, we're like the donkeys, and our afflictions are like the guys who are holding the rope, And the afflictions just lead us around, and we very dutifully follow, carrying this heavy burden of our karma on our back with no power, no ability to change the situation. Yeah? So, we really have to see the defects of the afflictions and how they work in our life. And then have, a very strong determination to be free of them. Yeah? Because we have to really see how we are imprisoned by them. If we don't think we're imprisoned, if we think that because we live in the West, in a free country that has a constitution, that means that we're free, then we have the wrong idea of freedom. Yeah? Because most of the people we look around us who are promoting freedom are not free. They are not free of their afflictions, are they? They're really like the donkeys. So, we have to think about this and want to be free of our afflictions, And then we have a real motivation to learn some of these topics that are challenging, because we see that, learning about emptiness, the wisdom realizing emptiness is the thing that's going to free us. And so the more we can learn about it, even if we're just learning the words and the concepts and some vocabulary and we don't understand a whole lot right now, still the more we can learn about it, the more we're planting those seeds in our mind. Yeah? And those seeds, once planted, then they can grow and we can fertilize them in the future. So it's important to have that kind of perspective when we're practicing. Yeah? And not care so much what all your old friends say and what they all think. Yeah? Like I remember my niece, now she's like almost 30, but even when she was 6, it was like, you wear the same clothes every day. Can you imagine at 6 years old, already there's the thought that something's wrong with you if you wear the same clothes every day, or that you're denying yourself some kind of happiness. Isn't that amazing? That young. Huh? Couldn't believe that I wore the same clothes every day. Yeah? Because freedom is, looking in your closet and spending a half an hour trying to figure out what you feel like wearing. And then none of it feels exactly like what you want to wear that day. Yeah? So you're dissatisfied, so you need to go out shopping and buy another outfit, because that one will really express who you are to the people that you want to impress. Yeah? Okay, so learning about emptiness is important. Because that's what's going to free us from all of this craziness, when you look at the world sometimes, when they talk about the degenerate age, sometimes I look and I think, I am so used to what is going on in the world that sometimes you don't think of it as being that crazy, or it's crazy, but it's crazy on the other half of the world, so it's not so crazy where you are. Yeah? But when you think of what's going on and how people think and what they do, it really, it's like something's quite wrong. Yeah, don't you think so? Something is very wrong. Yeah, when people think that being a suicide bomber is going to, bring them a good rebirth, when they think that that's a virtuous action to kill other people, they actually think this is a virtuous action. And that's what they teach to the children. Yeah, something's wrong. Something's wrong, When people think, I just need to get as much money as I can and, keep the government from having it. So I don't want to pay any taxes, but I want to use the road and I want to use the utility and I, depend on all these other things. But, I don't want to pay my fair share of taxes, even though you have you're in the upper 1%. When you should actually be giving your money away. Yeah, because you don't even know what to do with it. When you have that much money, what do you do with it? Most of it sits in the bank and sits in stocks and bonds and other things, and it's just a bunch of zeros with a number in front of it, And you don't even know what to do with all of it, but you can't bear to give it away, especially to people you think don't deserve it. Yeah? Because being born poor is your fault. Yeah? So, isn't something wrong with that kind of attitude? Yeah? I think something's very wrong. And yet, this is normal. In our world, this is normal. Yeah? So to really, look at some of these things and see their emptiness. Yeah, see the emptiness of money, for one. Yeah. It's paper and ink. Yeah, and it's amazing how you can switch it from account to account and here and there, and there's nothing that you even touch. Yeah? That's the weirdest thing. It's like you don't even touch anything. But, your money grows or your money decreases. That's very peculiar. Okay? So, to try and see these things as empty and try and see, ourselves as empty as well, so we don't get sucked in by a society that promotes afflictions as normal and as good. Yeah? Okay. So we're on 344, which is a great follow-up from Jeffrey, because it's about single and plural. Okay. So, 344, when different things are examined, none of them have singleness, because there is no singleness. There is no plurality either. But you're going to go, but wait a minute, we just did that exercise with Jeffrey, and there were all these single things. Yeah? Is this one or many? Yeah? Is this one or plural? What do you say? It's got to be one or plural. Single or plural, what is it? Come on. Single, but here Aryadeva says there is no singleness. Are Aryadeva and Jeffrey in conflict? Yeah? Jeffrey's wrong? Yeah? Aryadeva trumps him, or Aryadeva's wrong? And Jeffrey Thompson? I mean, come on. Okay. So this is refuting truly existent functional phenomena through the reason of there being neither one nor many, one nor plural. Okay? So when you examine functional things like pots, thank you. Like pots.
No S.
Oh, yes, you're right, it's single. So when you examine different things like pot, okay, to see if they're truly existent, okay, then, if they're truly existent, then they either have to be truly existent one or truly existent plural, one or many, single or plural, okay? So, is it one or is it plural? Is it single or is it plural?
That's a trick question, that's right.
Come on, what is it?
Single.
It's single. Are you sure?
That's the trick question part.
Are you sure it's single? What happens if I take off the handle and put it here? And what happens if I take off what is this? Andonized with steel base. Hard andonized with steel base. What if I took off that? And what if I took out the coating that it's coated with? Well, I need it for my example. So you can't cook with it.
That's your breakfast, what's done with it?
Huh?
That's your breakfast, what's done with it?
Yes, that's your breakfast spot.
Oh, well, then you can use it. But you got to give it back to me. Okay, anyway, so are you sure when you take off all the bolts and the handle and the bottom and the finish, is it still single?
I'm not even sure it's still pot.
It's true. It's true. Is it still pot? I mean, after a while, it's going to look like a mess, not like a pot, isn't it?
As long as it has a flat bottom and holds water, I think it qualifies, right? Or does it have to have some bulbous something?
Flat bottom bulbous-based water holder. But then that would qualify this as a pot, and no idiot would call this as a pot. But it fills the definition, isn't it? You call this a pot?
It could be called pot.
You can cook her soup in this. This is a gong, my dear. It's not a pot. And this would be a pot too.
Yeah, a ceramic pot.
Yeah. So is this one thing? When you look, it's not one thing, is it? Why not? Because it has parts. Because it has parts. Yeah? So anything that you know, if it's inherently existent, has to be inherently single or inherently plural. Yeah? It can't be inherently single because it has parts. It's made of many things. And it can't be inherently plural.
How can something be inherently plural?
Well, a thing, that's right, a thing can't be plural. But if it's, see, this is the problem with inherent existence. Things conventionally, you can say this is single, and sometimes you can say it's plural, depending on how you're looking at it. But if something were inherently existent, you couldn't look at it from different perspectives because something that's inherent existent does not depend on anything else at all. So having a perspective means depending on looking at something in a certain way. Yeah, having parts means dependent on those parts. Yeah, so the problem with truly existent things is that they're frozen. Yeah, they're totally frozen because they're independent of everything else. So as soon as you give them one label, they can't have any other label because they are that. And because they're independent of everything else, there's no way for them to change from being that. And if you look closely, there's actually no way for them to come into existence, because to make the pot, you have to take many things that are not pot and put them together. So how do you take a bunch of non-pots and put them together and get something that has, by its very nature, pot? Yeah, it doesn't work. Okay, so this is, when you analyze, this is what you want to do so that you can really see how what is appearing to our sense consciousnesses does not exist the way it appears. And when we grasp something as truly existent, it does not exist in the way that we're apprehending it to exist. Okay? Which means that we have a whole lot of wrong consciousnesses. Because when things just appear to us truly existent, that's not a wrong consciousness, that's just mistaken, because it appears truly existent while it's not. Yeah, but when we assent to that appearance and grasp that appearance as true, then we're perceiving something that actually doesn't exist. Okay? Yeah, so that means, because like when we have attachment, when we have anger, you know, together with that, there's grasping at inherently existent. Or immediately preceding the attachment and the anger, there's grasping at inherent existence. Okay? So those are wrong minds. So that means when you're sitting there looking at the person you adore more than anybody else in the world and thinking, I don't want to be separated from them, that is an erroneous consciousness. Gulp. Okay, yeah?
I just had a question. Is it all right for us to know that we're mistaken about that being a pot, and we just know that it's something that we label pot, but what we're trying to get away from is believing that it's a pot?
Right, right. Yeah, so we know when we look at it, we know we're labeling pot. We know it doesn't have any pot nature in itself. And then you know that the pot, the appearance of the pot, is then like an illusion, because it keeps appearing truly existent. Yeah, so it appears in a way that it doesn't exist, like illusions do. Yeah, they appear real, but they aren't. And we're tuned into that appearance, so we don't believe the appearance. We don't bite the hook. Okay? So that kind of attitude comes after we've realized emptiness with at least a correct inference. Yeah. And then like he said, we look at it and we're aware, oh, we're calling this pot, but there's actually nothing about it that is one. Yeah. Or I'm calling it mine, but there's actually nothing about this that is mine.
How would someone know that they realized emptiness? Would they just automatically perceive, understand that they play a role in everything that they perceive?
So how do you know you realized emptiness? I cannot speak from experience, but I would think that your whole way of looking at things when you come out of meditation is radically different. And when you're in meditation, you perceive just the emptiness. Yeah, you're able to really stay focused on the absence of inherent existence. And then afterwards, when you look at things, you think, oh, they appear one way, but they exist in another way. Like illusions. But, to realize emptiness, it's not like it just kind of like boing, you happen to be meditating today and, oh, well, I got emptiness. No, you have to create the cause for the realization. So, it's this whole process of hearing, thinking, meditating, creating merit, doing purification. There's a lot of different components that create the cause for the realization. Okay. Okay, so if something isn't inherently single, it can't be inherently plural, because plural is a bunch of single things put together. So it's not inherently single, it's not inherently plural. It's not one thing, it's not many things. Okay, why? Because it has parts. Why? Because it's dependent. Okay? So if they aren't truly existent single, they can't be truly existent plural or many. Okay? And so external and internal phenomena are not truly existent because they aren't one or many. They are like reflections. So reflection is the example like an illusion, When you look in the mirror, it looks like there's a real person there. Yeah, but there's not a real person. There's a reflected image that came about in dependence on the mirror and the person and the light and the angle. So there's this appearance that comes about dependent on many factors, but there's not a real face there. And yet you see, I remember watching one movie. I don't watch movies very often. I think it was the movie The Beautiful Mind, about that man who had, somebody gave me the video, who had, what? Schizophrenia, so he was seeing things. So, but what was interesting, there was one scene where his wife was so frustrated working with him and with him seeing things. Okay. Well, here, his schizophrenia, seeing things that didn't exist, yeah. But she was so frustrated that she went in the bathroom, she looked in the mirror, and she just smashed the mirror because she was so mad at herself. And so it was like, oh, that person in the mirror is a real person, and I'm mad at her. Happens to be me, but you smash it. Yeah, so even, somebody who knows that that the reflection in the mirror is not the person, at that moment, got the whole thing very confused. Yeah, and then had all this splintered mirror on the bathroom floor to clean up, and it didn't do anything for her anger at all. Yeah, but, so it's this thing of, seeing how things are dependent. But when we grasp them as being truly existent, it's like thinking the face in the mirror is a real face, is a real person. And so when you get mad at that person, you want to clobber them, you hit the mirror. Yeah? But the same thing goes on when we get mad at somebody in our life. Yeah? We think they are an inherently existent cat. Yeah. Yeah, we think, something is inherently existent there. Yeah, always has been, always will be. Yeah. And so we don't even see people correctly. We think that there's some kind of real person there, when all that we're seeing is just the product of a lot of different causes and conditions coming together. That's all. When we look around at each other, it's like, okay, Marg is this set of causes and conditions. Yeah, and Tanya's that set of causes and conditions. And Sage is another set of causes and conditions. That's all. Yeah, but that's there. But we're saying, oh no, there's something personal about it. Yeah? Isn't there? There's something personal about that set of causes and conditions. Right. They're unique. Their own set of causes and conditions. Yeah? And so that's how we think, but it's totally wrong. Yeah? Totally wrong.
Worse than that, we think we know what their motivations are and what they're thinking.
Yeah, it gets worse, doesn't it? Not just that we think they're inherently existent, but then we can read their minds so we know their motivations. Yeah. And even though they tell us one thing, we know they're making an excuse, and we know that actually it's something else, and yeah. Okay. Okay, so they're not single and they're not many. Got to go tell Jeffrey next Tuesday. Yeah. Now, along that line, he was having us focus on single and plural. One and different, same and different is also another way that's very, very interesting to look at things. And that's what, when Linda was there after Tuesday night, we started on that. It's a pity she's not here. But to look and, look at two things and ask yourself, are they the same or are they different? Yeah. Okay, so this is a pot, she said. So we have two pots. Are they the same or are they different? But they're both pots, aren't they the same?
You have to pick your context, you have to pick your criteria. Different pots.
There's similarities and differences.
Well, something can't be both the same and different. If it's inherently existent, it can't be. If it's conventionally existent, it can be. But with inherent existence, once it is that, it's that from its essence, because it doesn't depend on anything else. So either these two are the same or they're different.
We'll try to go on with the other one.
They have similar attributes, they both hold water.
Yeah, they're both flat bottom, bulbous based water holders. But are they the same or are they different?
It depends.
They're different.
Even if they looked exactly the same, they would still be different.
Okay, so even if they looked exactly the same, they would still be different. Why?
One's near and one's far.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. One's here because they're still different objects. Okay. Yeah. When we're doing this kind of analysis, yeah, in terms looking for true existence, yeah, when we say things are the same, it means they have to be the same in every respect. Okay? And in that case, like you said, two even identical looking pots are not the same because they aren't the same thing. Yeah. Something could only be the same as itself. It could only be one with itself. Yeah. On the other hand, if things are truly existent, if they're different, then they're totally unrelated to each other. Okay? So relationship, when we're talking about philosophy, there's two kinds of relationship. One is a cause and effect relationship. One is a one nature relationship. Okay? So cause and effect relationship, we kind of get that, don't we? Yeah? And cause and effect, do they exist at the same time or not? No. So can cause and effect be the same thing? No. Okay? But when we're talking about the relationship of one nature, it means that two things are kind of bound together. You can't totally separate them, like a part and a whole. Okay? So the part is one nature with the whole. In the same way, like we would say our aggregates, our aggregates are one nature with the person. But they aren't the person. Okay? So they're one nature with my body is one nature with me, but my body is not one with me. Because if it were one, in terms of true existence, then it would have to be exactly the same. So it's one nature, but it's also different. My body and me are different, aren't they? But they're one nature. But they're not one. They're different, but they're not different natures.
So is it that like samsara and nirvana are one nature?
No. I don't think you would say samsara and nirvana are one in nature. You would say they are mutually dependent. Okay? Yeah, they depend. It's another kind of dependence. They depend on each other. Yeah?
What can be one?
Pot and pot. The same pot is one with itself. Yeah? Okay? So, but it's interesting when we're looking at the aggregates and analyzing what's the relationship between the aggregates and the person. Yeah. The person depends on the aggregates, but the person isn't one with the aggregates. Okay. But then you think, well, why not? If you have all the aggregates together, isn't that the person? If we have, the handle is one nature with the pot, and so is the bottom. It's one nature with the pot. And all these different parts are one nature with the pot. They aren't the pot. But how about the collection of the pots? The collection of the parts? Shouldn't that be a pot? Yeah? Each part is not a pot. But when you put all the parts together, you get a pot. Don't you?
Is that the view of the perishing aggregates then? Is that something else?
Huh?
Yeah.
So, when you put all the parts together, don't you get the whole? Isn't the collection of parts and the whole the same thing?
No.
Why not?
Well, look at Picasso.
What?
Look at Picasso.
Look at Picasso. Yeah. When you put all the things together, you have all these car parts. When you put all the parts together, you have a car, don't you? So isn't the collection of the parts the car?
It depends on how you put the parts together too.
it does depend on how you put the parts together. Yeah, because just the mere collection is not necessarily the car. But let's say you put the parts together in a correct way so that it starts when you turn the ignition. Is a collection of parts the car? Are you sure? What else are you going to point to as the car if you don't point to the collection of parts?
So conventionally, that's true.
Yeah, go on.
Cars, the designated object.
The car is the designated object. What's the basis of designation? Car parts. Is the designated object and the basis of designation, are they the same thing? No. Yeah. But when you point, if there's a car over there or something, and I say that, yeah, are you pointing to the collection of the parts, or are you pointing to the basis of designation, or are you pointing to the designated object?
You're pointing to the basis of designation and designating it.
And designating it car,
Right.
aren't you?
Because the designation comes from our side, not from the part, that thing over their side.
Does it come totally from our side? Because it says car license plate on it. It says it has car written on it, so-and-so Motors.
That's right.
Yeah.
Be that as it may. The designation comes from the designator, not the thing to be designated.
Yeah, the designation comes from whoever it is that happens to designate. Yeah, but not from the side of the object. But when we look at that thing, we say there's a car. And it looks to us as if that collection of parts is a car. We're not looking at it as there's a collection of parts, are we? We're not looking at it as something that's plural because it has parts. We're looking at it as something that's single because it's a car. Yeah?
Actually, for the men, we do look at all the parts. The car. When I go to the car showroom, I will really look at the tires and everything is very important.
Yeah, you look at all the parts. Okay.
Besides the parts and the necessary proper arrangement to make the car, there's also the intended use of it.
The what?
The intended use of it.
Yeah,
The pot is not just the shape. The pot is partially, part of the definition of a pot is how it's used.
Yeah.
Look at the dictionary to see.
Yeah.
A lot of things, most things that we create have a use and an intent in their definition.
Yeah.
Then you get something like a rock, and then I don't know if that's
Right. But what's interesting is the Tibetan word, for pot is bumpa. Yeah. So those vases that we have in the rituals? Those are bumpas. And this is a bumpa. Because the definition is flat, bottom, bulbous, based water holder. So we have many different words that would describe different objects. Yeah. That we would not say, oh, they're all pots, would we? Because, like you said, they have different functions. You wouldn't put a boompa on a stove. Yeah, and you wouldn't put this in front of your lama who's doing a ritual.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay.
A potter might call a cup a pot. A friend of mine's a potter, and he's throwing pots.
Is-
A potter. Is it
Clay pot.
clay pot?
Oh, clay pot. Yeah, right.
Or he used to
It's
be-
not a cup.
Right.
And he was like, I'm throwing pots. Like,
I'm
making
throwing,
pots.
right. Yeah, right. He's making cups, but he says, I'm throwing pots. Yeah.
It's interesting when you see someone
something that you think is functionally one thing, but they don't have that in their head, maybe it's totally differently. Like a kid will take that and pound the floor with it, right? It'll make noise with it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't think of it as the thing you put on the stove and cook Venerable's food in.
Yeah.
The function comes, doesn't the function come when we say we conceive and label? The function comes with a conception,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the function definitely comes with conception. Yeah. Because we're the ones who figure out how that object is going to be used.
And then the label, it kind of comes before even.
Or it comes with the label. Or sometimes after the label. Sometimes we label something, and then we figure out later it can also be used for a new purpose. Yeah. This is now a paperweight. Yeah. Or it's a gong. It's a gong. But you see, if things are truly existent, it can't be a pot, and it can't be both a pot and a gong and a paperweight. Yeah.
And turn it upside down, it's become a statue holder.
Right. It's a statue. Yeah, support.
A baby helmet.
A baby helmet. Yeah.
The same object has different functionalities, like what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this, or it's that, or it's the other thing. It's the same object, but its function is different. Then it would have to exist independently in each one of those functions.
Oh, okay. So you're saying if you had one object that can be used for different functions, yeah, then would it have to exist independent in each function? Yeah, it would. But it couldn't, because something that is inherently existent is frozen. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter about the label or the function. It's once it's this. But
Yeah.
if you put a label on it for its function, then it becomes independent.
No, if things, see, true existence doesn't exist at all. Independent existence doesn't exist at all. But our mind projects independent existence on things. Yeah, and so that's the reason why she said, when we see, like for me, this is a gong. So if I go into the kitchen and she's making soup in it, I'm going to say, Venerable Chuni, I think you need to go to the doctor. Yeah. Okay. Because in my mind, I'm grasping this as this is a gong, and a gong cannot, something, if I'm grasping it as inherent existent, then it can't change function. And it can't have multiple names.
And it can't exist that way.
Huh?
It can't exist as that independent.
No.
Self, because it does have
Different functions and different names, and what you use it for depends on the situation. Yeah.
The most important characteristic of anything and its most important function is that it's mine.
Yeah. And this is, yes, the most important characteristic is it's mine. And this is what gets us into trouble the most.
That's what the anger comes and attachment to jealousy. Because this is a
mine.
You're not supposed to use it as a pot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially if it's my gong. And she's cooking tofu in my gong. Yeah. I don't know, but I don't think it's going to be very healthy because, I don't know what this is leaching out. Okay.
If it's somebody else, but
yeah, if it's somebody else, like, okay, whatever, let them work it out. Yeah?
So we're talking about objects that needed an inventor, like a mind to create it.
Mm-hmm.
But what about things like stars or tree that already exist that didn't need a creator to make them?
Okay.
is the label changing the function?
Well, if you look at the tree,
Yeah.
you could call it tree. You could also call it timber.
We call it shelter.
You could call it shelter.
Home.
Yeah, or home,
Firewood.
or firewood.
Pillar.
Yeah.
But there are some things that we don't change, like the sun, we don't, well, I guess.
Yeah.
We change we change how we think about these
Yeah.
things with people's mind changing.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that's real popular right now in science is there are people who think maybe we're all living in a simulation because the way mathematics works out is creepily, in line with how things seem to function.
Let's come back here. Okay? So, yeah, I mean, even things in nature, they can be used for different functions, can't they? Yeah. And some people call the sun a star.
It is a star.
There's a star.
It is
If it's a star, how can it be the sun?
Some people called it a god.
Yeah, some people called it a god. Yeah. And, we see a man in the moon, although I still can't figure out how people see a man in the moon. But the Tibetans see a rabbit in the moon. I can't see that either. Yeah. Yeah.
People see a woman in the moon.
So it's interesting, how we think of something is going to change according to the label we give it, because every label is coming with a definition that is going to, if we understand that definition, it's going to change how we look at the object. Yeah. But if things are independently existent, that can't happen. Yeah. Because for that to happen, it means that something exists within an entire environment, and it's conditioned. The role it plays is conditioned by the entire environment. Yeah. It's like we were kind of what we were talking about before. Somebody might be a teacher, yeah, but when they come home and they're sitting and cooking dinner, are they a teacher? Yeah. If people are inherently existent, then they must still be a teacher when they're cooking dinner. Inherently, which would mean that they would still be teaching when they're cooking.
Exactly.
Yeah. Says our cook, the teacher.
The kid says, Dad, okay, school is over.
Yeah. So, because we say somebody is a teacher, yeah, even after they've retired. Yeah, even during summer vacation, even when they go home and they're cooking. Yeah. So they're a teacher even when they aren't fulfilling the function of the label. But you see, we can do that when we see that labels are just labels, that words are labels. But when we confuse the object labeled with the basis of designation and think that they're the same thing, then those kind of changes can't happen. Because once the label, the object designated teacher, and the basis of designation, those aggregates, if they were inherently existent, then once that person is a teacher, always. Yeah. And it also means they can never change careers. Yeah. And it also means they can't have any other identifying marks about them, because a teacher is a person. Yeah. And, Spanish, being Spanish is a person. Yeah. Being a man or a woman is a person. Men and women are people. So if this is a person, Yeah, if they were a teacher plus a woman plus Spanish, if they were inherently existent, there would be 3 people there. Yeah. Then if they're an aunt and a mother and a, you know, all these other things, then you have many, many people there. Yeah. Which again, you need to go see the doctor if you think that. Yeah. Yeah, because there's just one person there. But if there's one person, how can one person be all these different people? Because each of those things is a person. Yeah. So that's the thing with inherent existence. You know, once it has that essence, that nature, then you can't give other names, you can't give other functions. Okay. Mm-hmm.
So then I'm struggling with this idea that we are constantly seeing things as truly inherently existent.
Mm-hmm.
But Venerable Chini can look at that and go over and cook with it.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't think it's inherently a pot, inherently a gong, so I cannot use it that way.
Right.
Or my friend comes home from work, I don't say, oh, you're not my friend, you're still the teacher. You know, it's, we in just a common sense way don't see things frozen.
Yeah, that's it. We don't see things frozen in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when we look at something, you know, when we look at a person, there's something there more than the collection of parts.
Sure.
Yeah. That's where we run into trouble. Because we're not just seeing a collection of parts functioning in a certain way that for convenience sake has a label on it. We're seeing that person, you know, like Venerable Chuni is a nun, therefore you don't ask her out for a date. Okay? You know? Yeah, it's true. But if you know, you go ask her out for a date, she's going to be offended. I am a nun. Don't you know? I am a nun. I am not dateable. Yeah. Yeah. So you see, when we're just normally relating to things, we're not having that grasping. They're still appearing true existent, but we're not grasping at them true existent. But when we start grasping, then we're assenting to that appearance as true. And that's when she's going to get offended because you know, somebody asked her out, and, you know, whoever asked her out is going to feel hurt.
But not in every moment are we stuck in that frozen.
No, we're not always grasping things as truly existent. Yeah. But they always appear that way, but we don't always grasp them that way. But as soon as there's some emotion involved, there's some grasping. Even with positive emotion. Yeah, even when we're creating virtue, there's still some grasping.
And we can't tell.
Yeah. We can't tell that we're doing it because we can't identify the object of negation.
Right.
Yeah?
It's just like that movie that you saw. Remember at the end?
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't tell, but he asked a reliable person.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's what we're doing with the teachings.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, he knows he has false appearance, so he asks somebody who's reliable what's going on.
Is somebody really there? Is that person really there that I'm seeing or not? He asked a reliable person.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a way, that's what we're doing when we're relying on the Buddha, isn't it? Yeah.
So we're relying on our antidotes.
Yeah. Okay, I lost the clock. Oh, okay, it's time to stop. Well, we did one verse? One verse? Okay.
And it's not plural.
Okay. Okay. It's one verse, but it's verse, we did 244. 344.
But it had many parts.
Is a virtuous action only virtuous if you're not grasping at it in the sense that you're not calling it virtuous? It just kind of...
No, it's because for ordinary sentient beings, even when we create virtue, oh, now it all turned red. Oh, goodness. Even when we create virtue, there's grasping at true existence, because that karma will produce rebirth in samsara. Okay? But it's a virtuous karma, so it will produce a good rebirth in samsara. Yeah? And so very often, you know, when we're doing something virtuous, there's some grasping. Yeah? It may not be super pronounced, but, you know, I'm sitting here offering sok, or I'm chanting. Yeah? You have a good reason, you know, I want to become a Buddha for the benefit of sentient beings. So it's a virtuous reason, but there's still thinking of yourself as, you know, I'm this person creating virtue. Yeah. But it sure beats thinking I'm a person creating non-virtue. Yeah?
So, the mutual dependence, is that the relationship between the mantra and reciter that we were talking about last week?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you say that they're one nature, or does one nature only refer to phenomena and attributes?
No, I wouldn't say the mantra and the reciter are one nature. I would say they were mutually dependent. Okay? One nature would be like the aggregates in the person, like the part and the whole. You know, that's what we would say is one nature. Okay? But mutual dependence, cause and effect are mutually dependent. You know, goer and going, mantra and mantra reciter, yeah. Cook and eating, people who are eating, yeah. They're different, but they're mutually dependent. Okay, so it's quite interesting spending some time thinking about all these different kind of relationships, different things some people can have. And are they different? Are they the same? Are they one nature? Are they different natures? The thing is that everything that is, two things that are mutually dependent are not necessarily one nature. Okay? So for example, cause and effect. Yeah? Cause and effect are dependent on each other. Something is a cause because there's an effect that can be produced. Something is an effect that because there's a cause that produces it. But they're not one nature, because things that are one nature have to exist at the same time. And cause and effect don't exist at the same time. Okay? So if it's mutually dependent, it's not necessarily one nature. Yeah?
So an orange and the juice made, like if you puree, say, a tomato, they're not the same nature, because the cause of the puree was...
Right, right. They're not the same nature. Yeah, so it's a different usage of the word nature, because we might say, oh, but you know, it's puree here and it's a whole tomato there. They still have the same nature as tomato, but they exist at different times, so they can't be one nature. They're cause and effect.
So even me in this moment and then me in the next moment are not the same nature?
No, they're in a continuum. They're cause and effect. Me of this moment produces me of next moment.
It's like parent and child, right?
Yeah.
You can't have the child without the parent.
the child. Yeah, but they aren't the same, and they aren't the same nature.
Venerable, is it true that things that are of same nature, it's only, that can only be understood conceptually? It's not like things like the color in the tomato, that's one nature.
Yeah.
But the tomato and its seed,
They're not one nature.
they're not one nature. So it's not like something that you could.
Things that are one nature have to exist at the same time.
Yeah.
If they're cause and effect, they don't exist at the same time.
Right. So that then you can only discern them by separating them out in your mind. Is that right with one nature?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because they're there together. Yeah. If you took out the red of the tomato,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't take out the red of the tomato, can you?
Then you can have green tomato.
It would turn red.
Then you want to do it, a green tomato.
Yeah, it would be a green tomato. You didn't.
Nature of that one nature.
Right.
Yeah, then the green and the tomato would be, the green would be one nature with the tomato.
What about the seeds in the tomato? You could take them out, separate them.
You mean the seeds of the tomato?
What's in
Inside
it?
The seeds inside the tomato, yeah, they're one nature, you know.
You could separate them physically.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're,
They still exist.
They are one nature?
the seeds, when you have a tomato, because the seeds inside the tomato,
It's part of it.
they're part of the tomato. After you take them out, if you have, you sliced up the tomato for salad and you took the seeds out, then you wouldn't say they're one nature with the tomato. But when you have a whole tomato, you know.
I wonder how far away they have to be before they no longer.
That's a good question.